The Taraxis Dominion fleet hung above the burning world like a crown of fire. From his command cradle aboard the dreadnought reclaimer, Admiral XYRR watched the last human transmissions fade into static. The humans screamed, then prayed, then fell silent. XYRR had learned their languages during the early conquests. He found them oddly musical, even when begging for life. Now he watched the planet's crust buckle and peel away under orbital bombardment, and he felt only boredom. Another colony erased Admiral, reported his first officer, a lean, violet-skinned strategist named Vorth. Resistance negligible. Their defense grid surrendered itself halfway through engagement. Efficiency is the mark of superiority, XYRR murmured. He leaned back, claws tapping against the metallic armrest. And yet, there is no satisfaction in crushing the soft. His voice carried that faint rasp common among his species, a sound like whispering stone. The officers laughed at his mock melancholy. To them, humanity was nothing but an industrious pest species, fragile and reckless. The Dominion had consumed empires far older, far more dangerous. Humanity was just another line on a conquest ledger. Vorth gestured toward the main display. One vessel escaped the bombardment, sir. Civilian configuration, but it entered slip space before we could intercept. XYRR waved a talon lazily. Let it run. Perhaps it will tell its kind what happens to those who trespass in Dominion sectors. He turned to the viewing window and watched the world's atmosphere collapse into glowing ribbons. There is poetry in inevitability. Hours later in the tactical hall, XYRR stood among his commanders as they charted their next assault. The humans had dozens of colonies scattered like spores across unclaimed stars. A species without restraint, one of his generals sneered. They multiply and wander. They will never learn boundaries. The holomap flickered. The next target gleamed in pale blue. Sol system. XYRR tilted his head. Earth, he said, savoring the sound. Their origin world. Vorth frowned. Intelligence suggests it's poorly defended. A symbolic attack, perhaps? It offers little strategic value. XYRR's grin revealed sharp ivory teeth. Symbols break spirits, Vorth. And spirits win wars. Bring the fleet to full readiness. We strike their home. 600 warships gathered at the fringe of Sol. They emerged from slip space like predators materializing from shadow, cruisers the size of continents, carriers humming with energy, escorts fanning outward in perfect formation. Expectation filled the bridge. Dominion vessels were built to impress, to dominate through presence alone. Yet as their sensors swept the system, the silence felt unnatural. Minimal orbital signatures, Vorth reported. I detect abandoned satellites, some decaying stations, and one active contact. He paused. A single ship. XYRR arched an eye ridge. A lone defender. Designation, TNS Vengeance. A ripple of amusement ran through the officers. Such melodrama, one murmured. Humans do love their dramatic names, XYRR replied. Broadcast surrender protocols. Offer them the dignity of kneeling before extinction. A transmission answered instead, a voice calm, precise, and strangely devoid of fear. Unidentified vessels. You are trespassing in a restricted system. Reverse course immediately. The bridge fell silent. Then someone laughed. Another followed, nervous and cruel. XYRR smiled thinly. How quaint. They think authority travels with words. Shall we respond, Admiral? Yes. Tell them. Before he could finish, the human voice returned, softer now, carrying a weight that unsettled even XYRR. This is your final warning. Then the channel cut. The Dominion flagship advanced. The Vengeance remained motionless, a narrow silhouette drifting before Earth's pale sphere. It was smaller than a Dominion cruiser by magnitudes, an insect before a Titan. XYRR watched the tactical screens populate with firing solutions. Erase it, he ordered. The first barrage roared through the void, plasma lances streaking across space, guided by flawless algorithms. For a heartbeat, they seemed to strike true. Then light folded. The energy beams curved back on themselves, collapsing into invisible points. The Vengeance shimmered, and the Dominion's own targeting systems began to fail. Interference, shouted Vorth. Their countermeasures are. The screen flickered, replaced by static. A second later, the Vengeance vanished. Sensors screamed, searching, failing. Find them. XYRR barked. There, Vorth hesitated, eyes widening. They're inside our formation. Impossible, XYRR thought. But the evidence unfolded before him. Ships detonating silently, their hulls crushed inward, their reactors extinguished without a single explosion. The Dominion fleet convulsed, disoriented, unable to comprehend what they faced. "Withdraw at a distance," he shouted. "Reform the line." The Vengeance reappeared off their port bow. Its surface glowed faintly, lines of light pulsing like veins under armor. No weapon ports visible, no emission signatures, yet entire battlecruisers disintegrated around it. A message blinked onto the command screen. "You were warned." XYRR stared at the words, cold realization creeping in. The humans had never pleaded for mercy. They had never broadcast surrender. They had told them to turn away. "Admiral," Vorth whispered, voice trembling, "this can't be conventional weaponry." "Then it's something worse," XYRR replied. He watched as the Vengeance moved again, not through thrust but through space itself, ripping folds open like pages in a book. "Cease fire. Now." The command came too late. The fleet's return volley triggered a chain reaction across distorted space. XYRR felt the reclaimer shudder as gravity twisted. One by one, ships vanished, not destroyed, simply erased. The stars themselves bent, as if refusing to witness the slaughter. When silence finally returned, half the fleet was gone. The remaining ships drifted aimlessly, their crews stunned into disbelief. "Signal them," XYRR said softly. "Request parley." No response. Only the background hum of static and the faint murmur of the dying. He looked toward Earth, a quiet, blue world untouched amid the chaos, and for the first time in his long, disciplined life, he felt something foreign gnawing at the edges of his composure. Not anger, not hatred, fear. The Vengeance turned away, its engines whispering light across the darkness. Then it was gone. XYRR remained standing long after its signal faded. Around him, the officers waited for orders that would not come. "Admiral," Vorth asked quietly. XYRR's eyes lingered on the empty void. "Send word to command," he said at last. "Tell them the humans are not what we thought." The reclaimer drifted among the debris, the glow of ruined ships reflecting off its hull. The Admiral's claws tightened against the railing. He could not shake the voice that had spoken across the stars, calm, measured, certain. They had been warned. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not a battle lost, it was a message delivered. The corridors of the reclaimer felt hollow now, filled with the quiet of a wounded beast. Admiral XYRR moved through the command deck like a ghost, the scent of scorched metal clinging to the air. Entire divisions had been reduced to vapor. The fleet's survivors drifted at the edge of Sol, too afraid to advance, too proud to retreat. Reports came in from every sector. Communications collapsed, engines stuttering, morale disintegrating. It was as though the universe itself had turned hostile to Dominion presence. Vorth stood by the viewport, his uniform torn, his usual precision stripped away. "We've confirmed," he said. 70% of the armada is gone. Not destroyed, deleted. Our long-range probes can't even detect debris." "Deleted," XYRR repeated softly, tasting the word like poison. "They have found a way to erase matter." "Or rewrite it," Vorth murmured. "Their physics make no sense. Whatever weapon they used, our sensors can't define it. It's as if they control the space between what exists." XYRR stared into the void where half his fleet had been. "We underestimated them," he said. "We thought they were expanding without discipline, scattering colonies across chaos. But this," he gestured toward the darkness, "this is deliberate. They knew we would come." For the first time since the attack, the communications console flickered with an incoming transmission. The display glowed with the human insignia, a simple blue circle containing a white arc. No words, no voice. Then static, followed by coordinates. "An invitation," Vorth said, wary. "Or a trap." "Do we answer?" XYRR considered. "We must understand what we face. Bring us in." The reclaimer limped toward the coordinates. They expected an ambush. Instead, they found an empty relay station orbiting a dead moon. Inside, remnants of human machinery floated in weightless silence, outdated technology, scattered terminals, cracked displays. Yet one console still pulsed with energy, waiting. Vorth activated it. The screen came to life, revealing a human admiral, an older man with iron-gray hair, his eyes sharp, unflinching. The recording played automatically. If you're watching this, you've made the same mistake we predicted, the man said. His voice was calm, almost weary. You believed the colonies were our weakness. They were our decoys. XYRR felt his stomach tighten. We learned from our own extinction events long before you arrived. Every world you destroyed, every transmission you intercepted was bait. Project Echo recorded your strategies, your weapons, your command patterns. We didn't fight you because we didn't need to. We were listening. The message ended. The screen went dark. Vorth looked pale, his mandibles tightening. They sacrificed their own colonies to study us. XYRR remained silent. The thought clawed at him. The humans had planned for defeat. They had invited it. Suddenly, the console flickered again, displaying a stream of encoded data. Dominion language, human symbols, tactical overlays, all intertwined. They're transmitting to us, Vorth said. It's showing us our own fleet schematics. They're teaching us how blind we've been, XYRR said bitterly. They want us to understand before they end us. The data stopped abruptly, replaced by a simple text. Stop this. You will not win. Vorth turned to his admiral. They could have destroyed us completely. Why let us live? XYRR's voice was quiet, almost reverent. Because they're not waging war. They're sending a warning. He studied the silent human base, realizing how much of his arrogance had blinded him. For cycles, the Dominion had believed itself unmatched, its dominance inevitable. Now one species, barely a child in the galactic timeline, had unmade that illusion with a whisper and a single ship. When they returned to the fleet, the comm channels were chaos. Captains demanded answers, demanding vengeance, claiming the humans had broken some unspoken rule of war. XYRR listened to them bicker, their bravado ringing hollow. Order, he barked, his voice cutting through the noise. You think we've been humiliated? We have not. We have been educated. The humans fight differently because they think differently. They plan for annihilation and call it preparation. They learn through loss. Every battle they lose teaches them how to win the next one. The channel went silent. He could feel their disbelief. Pride still held them, though its grip was cracking. Admiral, one captain asked carefully, what are your orders? Withdraw to Dominion space, XYRR said. Send our full logs to the High Council. Let them see what we've seen. Retreat, another voice spat. From primitives. XYRR's eyes flared. From extinction. As the fleet aligned for jump, XYRR lingered on the bridge, staring once more at the blue marble of Earth. He tried to imagine the people living there, those quiet architects of fear. What kind of species would build false worlds, sacrifice millions, and wait decades just to strike once? He felt no hatred for them now. Only respect and the cold understanding of what was to come. When the ships folded back into slipspace, XYRR felt the familiar distortion pull at his chest. But something was wrong. The navigation grid flickered. Half the fleet failed to synchronize. Warning alarms flared across the bridge. Interference in the jump corridor. Vorth shouted. It's human signal pollution. Something's intercepting our coordinates. Before XYRR could respond, the reclaimer lurched violently. Space twisted. For a heartbeat, the stars blinked out entirely. Then, in perfect silence, they reappeared, different stars, unfamiliar constellations. Vorth's voice trembled. Admiral, this isn't Dominion territory. On the viewport, new shapes drifted into focus, human satellites, automated defense drones, orbital arrays humming with quiet purpose. They had jumped directly into a human defense perimeter. The Vengeance appeared again. Its hull shimmered like liquid glass, its movements untraceable. This time no message came. Only the cold hum of locked targeting sensors. XYRR felt his claws clench around the railing. They let us leave to follow us here, he murmured. They wanted us to see the scale of their reach. The Vengeance drifted closer until its massive shadow filled the bridge. For a long, suspended moment, nothing happened. Then the sensors pulsed once more and fell silent. They're not firing, Vorth said. No, XYRR replied. They've already won. They just want us to understand how. The Vengeance turned and vanished, leaving the reclaimers surrounded by human constructs. Each emitted the same faint pulse, like a heartbeat in the dark. XYRR watched them fade into the void. Vorth, he said quietly, send another transmission to the Council. Tell them the humans have changed the nature of war. And tell them, he paused, feeling the unfamiliar weight of humility settle in his chest. Tell them I fear this is only their beginning. The message sent, he leaned against the cold metal rail, staring into the starless dark. Somewhere out there, beyond the known sectors, humanity was preparing for something larger, something patient, inevitable, and utterly beyond the Dominion's comprehension. The Admiral exhaled slowly. The silence that followed was not the quiet of peace. It was the silence before the rest of the galaxy realized what it had awakened. The Dominion capital shimmered beneath a veil of energy fields, its cities carved into gleaming spires that stretched toward a cold, crimson sun. Admiral XYRR stood before the Grand Council, the sound of his boots echoing in the vast chamber. Before him, the Dominion's most powerful minds gathered in their ornate perches, elders, strategists, and scientists who had long believed in the inevitability of their rule. Yet as XYRR faced them, he saw unease flickering behind their polished arrogance. "You claim," began Counselor Seraph, her voice sharp as glass, "that a primitive world destroyed our fleets with a single vessel. That they erased our ships from existence. You expect us to believe this myth?" "Is no myth," XYRR replied. "You've read the logs. You've seen the telemetry, ships vanishing without detonation, space bending under their control. They wield a technology we do not comprehend." "Superstition," another counselor sneered. "Malfunctioning sensors battle stress. You've lost perspective, Admiral." XYRR's temper flared, but he forced his tone to remain level. The humans did not win through power alone. They won through preparation. Every colony they lost was a test. Every defeat, a design. They lured us into their web, and we stepped willingly. Laughter rippled through the chamber, brittle and false. Seraph leaned forward, claws clasped. "So you suggest we fear them? One backwater species among thousands." "I suggest we understand them," XYRR said. "They are not like the others we've conquered. They do not seek expansion for pride or profit. They seek survival. And in survival, they have perfected cruelty." A murmur spread among the counselors. XYRR could see the divide forming, some intrigued, others dismissive. Pride had been the Dominion's armor for centuries. Now it threatened to become its noose. The Council's arch-historian, old and blind, spoke from the shadows. "You have seen them closely, Admiral. Tell us what drives them." XYRR hesitated. His memories flickered. The human admiral's calm face, the cold precision of the vengeance, the quiet certainty in their warning. "They carry the memory of extinction," he said. "Their entire history is a cycle of destruction and rebirth. They build empires knowing they will fall. They burn worlds knowing they will rise again. To them, loss is not failure, it is instruction." The chamber fell silent. For a brief, fragile moment, XYRR thought he had reached them. Then Saratha's voice shattered the stillness. "Enough of this human worship. You let fear corrupt your reason. The Dominion does not retreat from insects." She turned to the others. "We will strike again. This time we bring the entire core fleet." XYRR stepped forward. "If you do that, you invite your extinction." Saratha's eyes narrowed. "You presume to lecture your superiors." "I presume to prevent the annihilation of our species," XYRR said, his composure fracturing. "We face an enemy that understands us better than we understand ourselves. They study their enemies like surgeons dissecting prey. They already know how we will respond." The guards moved toward him, but XYRR raised his voice, cutting through the rising noise. "You think their silence is weakness. It is not. It is strategy. They are waiting for you to strike again so they can end this war without mercy." "Remove him," Sarath ordered. As the guard seized his arms, XYRR shouted one last warning. "They will come for you, not for conquest, but for balance. And when they do, remember that I tried to make you listen." The council's doors sealed behind him with the finality of a tomb. They stripped him of command, of rank, of purpose. Yet isolation brought no peace. XYRR could not banish the images from his mind, the silent human ships, the haunting calm in their messages, the way they fought without fury. Dominion wars had always been loud, glorious, drenched in spectacle. Humanity waged theirs in whispers. Confined to a remote observation post, XYRR spent his days studying captured fragments of human transmissions. Hours of old footage flickered across his screen. Ancient human wars, faces distorted by smoke and fire, soldiers screaming beneath burning skies. At first, he watched as an analyst. Eventually, he watched as a believer. He saw the trenches of Earth's old wars, the nuclear fire over their cities, the endless revolutions that shaped their species. They had slaughtered each other with precision, ingenuity, and conviction, and through that blood they had evolved a perfect understanding of conflict. One night, as he watched a human soldier cradle a dying comrade, whispering comfort amid ruin, XYRR realized what terrified him most. The humans were not monsters. They were empathetic. They felt the cost of every death, every burned city, and still they fought on. Compassion turned into weapon. Pity refined into endurance. That was their secret. A soft chime broke his reverie. The station sensors blinked alive, massive warp signatures emerging from Dominion space. The core fleet had launched. Against his warning, the Council had committed everything. XYRR leaned closer to the display as coordinates unfolded. They weren't advancing towards Sol this time. The Dominion was launching a system-wide offensive, multiple incursions meant to crush human infrastructure before it could react. The arrogance of it burned through him. He knew what would happen next. Hours passed before the first distress calls came. Entire Dominion armadas vanished mid-transit, communications dying in waves. Reports streamed in, space distortion, gravitic collapse, hostile interference. The humans were dismantling them from within their own warp corridors. No open battle. No declarations. Just silent, surgical annihilation. When the last transmission arrived, it wasn't from a Dominion ship, it was from the humans. A simple message. Cease your approach. Conflict escalation will end now. The line went dead. XYRR sat back, the glow of the dying fleets flickering across his face. The Council had fallen into the trap he'd foreseen, yet a part of him still struggled to comprehend the scale of human precision. They didn't merely destroy fleets, they erased intent. They fought as though war itself were a language, and they alone were fluent. Through the viewing window, XYRR saw the first light bloom across the stars, the beginning of the end. Human fleets, countless and coordinated, emerging through wormholes across Dominion space. The effect was almost beautiful, like the universe exhaling after holding its breath too long. He whispered to no one, "They warned us." The communication console chimed once Maureen encrypted signal, human origin. He hesitated before opening it. The same voice from before spoke, steady and sorrowful. "Admiral XYRR, we know you tried to stop them. Stand down. This will be over soon." The screen dimmed, leaving him in the hush of inevitability. He rose and looked out at the spreading conflagration. In the distance, the Dominion's home stars flickered and died, one by one. The silence that followed was not peace. It was judgment. XYRR straightened his uniform, even stripped of its insignia, and whispered, "So this is how empires end, not with rebellion, but with comprehension." The stars burned quietly on, and in that quiet, he felt the first stirrings of something new. Not defiance, not despair, but understanding. He knew the humans would not stop here. They would move on, reshape the balance of the galaxy, redefine fear itself. And for the first time in his long life, Admiral XYRR no longer wanted to command armies. He only wanted to watch what came next. The Dominion homeworld burned in silence. From orbit, the once proud spires of their civilization were reduced to molten rivers, glowing like veins beneath a dying skin. The human fleets hung above the devastation, not triumphant, not vengeful, simply present. Their formation was geometric perfection, precise and unbroken. Every movement followed an unseen rhythm, every strike an act of cold necessity. Admiral XYRR watched the spectacle from his observation deck, his reflection fractured by the flickering light of a conquered world. The Dominion High Council was gone, vaporized in the first assault. Their arrogance had met the quiet precision of extinction. Yet the humans had not continued the slaughter. The bombardment stopped abruptly, leaving half the cities intact, as if preserved for judgment. It was not victory through hatred, it was correction through order. Vorth approached quietly, his once steady hands trembling. "The human envoys are requesting audience," he said. His voice carried the brittle restraint of someone who no longer knew what defiance meant. XYRR nodded. "Bring them here." Moments later, the doors hissed open. Two humans entered, clad in black uniforms devoid of insignia. Their movements were efficient, unhurried. Between them walked a woman, older, her expression composed, her eyes pale with exhaustion rather than malice. She stopped before XYRR and inclined her head, the gesture neither deferential nor mocking. "Admiral XYRR," she said, "you understand why we are here." Her voice carried the weight of inevitability. "I understand that you have destroyed my civilization," XYRR replied. "But I do not yet understand why you have stopped." The woman studied him, and for a moment there was almost sympathy in her gaze. "Because destruction isn't the goal," she said. "Correction is." He let the words settle. "Correction," he repeated softly. "You speak as though you were caretakers, not conquerors." "In a sense, we are both," she said. "Your species believed dominance meant stability. You spread through fear and force, but you never adapted. Humanity learned the opposite. We survived every extinction by changing who we were. You refused to." Her calm was infuriating and mesmerizing all at once. "You sound like philosophers," XYRR said, his tone sharp with bitterness. "Yet your ships reduced billions to ash." She met his glare without flinching. "We warned you. We gave you every opportunity to turn back. We only removed what would not listen." Vorth shifted uneasily, his throat tightening. "And what of us? What is left for those who survived?" The human's gaze moved to him, then back to XYRR. "You rebuild," she said simply. "But not under the Dominion. Under a new accord. You will govern your remaining systems as part of the Galactic Compact. Humanity will oversee stability for the next century." XYRR gave a hollow laugh. "Oversee? You mean rule?" "Call it what you wish," she said, unmoved. "You are alive because we choose restraint." The Admiral felt the sting of those words. Restrained mercy was more humiliating than annihilation. Yet beneath his pride, something else stirred, a grudging understanding. They were offering survival, not as equals, but as witnesses. He studied the woman's face, her steady composure, the faint shadows under her eyes. "You've seen too much war," he said. "You speak like someone who hates it." "I do," she answered quietly. "Every soldier who stood behind me does. But we learned long ago that peace is not granted, it's enforced." Her words cut deeper than any blade. For the first time, XYRR understood what the humans had become. They were not conquerors in the old sense. They were custodians of chaos, stewards of survival through dominance. A civilization that had internalized its own brutality and refined it into control. Vorth turned toward XYRR, whispering, "If we accept, we live. If we resist, we cease," XYRR finished. He looked back at the woman. "You will have your compact," he said finally. "But I ask for one thing in return." Her brow lifted slightly. "Name it. Let me witness it. Let me see what you will build from the ashes." For the first time, she smiled, a small, weary curve of her lips. "Then you will serve as liaison. You warned them when no one else did. Perhaps that is enough to begin again." XYRR bowed his head. "Perhaps." When she and her escort left, silence reclaimed the chamber. Outside, the human fleets began to disperse, each vessel vanishing into folds of light. The sky cleared, revealing the ravaged surface below, a graveyard and a cradle both. Vorth stood beside his admiral, eyes wide with disbelief. "You trust them?" XYRR shook his head slowly. "No, but I understand them." "What are they really?" Vorth asked. "What kind of beings fight with such precision, then speak of mercy?" XYRR's gaze lingered on the stars. "Beings who've learned that mercy is the final weapon." Days turned into weeks. Reconstruction began under human supervision. Their drones arrived in silence, building infrastructure, restoring power, curing famine, stabilizing what remained of the Dominion's fractured society. Yet beneath every act of aid was the unspoken truth. Nothing happened without human permission. XYRR spent his nights watching the horizon burn with the glow of industry. The new order rose swiftly, efficient and indifferent. For every saved life, 100 rules followed. For every city rebuilt, 1,000 eyes watched. The humans had not just conquered, their victory had rewritten the nature of control. One evening, he received a transmission from the woman who had spoken to him. Her voice was softer this time, as if stripped of its command. "The compact is forming across the remaining sectors. We will need representatives. Your people respect you." "They fear me," XYRR said. "Fear is a kind of respect," she replied. "You warned them once. Warn them again. Tell them not to repeat our mistakes." "And what mistake is that?" The silence stretched before she answered, believing that peace would last. The line cut off. XYRR turned to the window once more, the stars sharp and brilliant beyond the haze. Humanity's fleets still moved between them like shadows, silent, disciplined, unrelenting. The galaxy had bent around their will, and yet he sensed they were not satisfied. They had won the war, but their eyes looked further, toward the edges of the unknown, as if waiting for the next threat to justify their vigilance. Vorth entered quietly. Reports say the humans are expanding deeper into uncharted space. They're building something. XYRR nodded, unsurprised. They always build after they destroy. Do you think they'll ever stop? The Admiral's gaze drifted to Earth's distant glimmer on the star map, a tiny point amid a sea of conquered suns. No, he said. They've been awakened. A species that learns from pain will never rest. Their wars made them gods in their own eyes, and gods don't sleep, they prepare. The stars reflected in his eyes as he spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. The galaxy asked why humans sent one ship. They never asked what waited behind it. Outside, the first human arcships departed Dominion space, vanishing into wormholes that flared like newborn stars. In their wake, silence returned, not the silence of peace, but of anticipation. The Dominion was gone. The humans had inherited the galaxy. And somewhere beyond the edges of known space, something ancient and vast might already have been listening, waiting to ask its own question. XYRR watched the light fade and whispered to the void, now they will learn to fear what they've become.